Today's Dallas Cowboys Report video is all about the top roster battles entering training camp, but you no longer need to have a battle about eating tasty cereal or healthy cereal. Magic Spoon is the perfect blend of both. It tastes like the sugary, delicious stuff that you grew up with, and it's actually healthy for you. Get $5 off your first order at magicspoon.com/Cowboys. All right, 5 position battles to get into here. My first one is linebacker in general, because not only is there a battle for who starts each spot, there's kind of a battle going on for who even could make the roster, but I think the more intriguing one here is who actually plays the most at this position. 5 linebackers in the mix for what in reality is mostly going to be 2 spots out there on the field. Let's start with the team's first-round pick, Micah Parsons, who for now, I'll list at middle linebacker. He's going to get some off-ball, outside linebacker, almost edge rusher reps as well. Do a little bit of everything for this team because they want to get him on the field. If he's good in coverage, this pick is going to look really smart, but that's my number one concern on him. But it's a first-round pick. The Cowboys are going to try to get him on the field. Now, amid some potential trade rumors around Jaylon Smith, which, as you guys know, I've never really bought into, although he's been a tackling machine in his NFL career, the coverage has not been great. He's not nearly the pass rusher I think we want him to be, and the drafting of Micah Parsons and Jabril Cox, who we'll get to later on, very much put Jaylon Smith's future with the Cowboys in doubt. Yes, he's under contract. He's fighting for not just playing time this year, but a roster spot next season. The same is true of former first-round pick Leighton Vander Esch, who in 2018, and I am guilty of this because I fell for it too, I thought Jaylon Smith, Leighton Vander Esch was going to be the best 1-2 punch of young linebackers in the NFL. I was so sold on them. And then Jaylon kind of regressed, the scheme changed, neither played that great, and LVE has not been healthy. The production over the past 2 years in more games has gone the wrong way for Vander Esch. Now, maybe he'll be fully healthy this year. Maybe he'll recapture his 2018 form, but he is in the last year of his contract. Now for the other weak side linebackers along with Leighton Vander Esch, right? Keanu Neal. If I could promise you this level of production out of Keanu Neal, 9 tackles for loss, I think you guys would probably be pretty happy with that. And he was a safety last year for the Falcons. I think you're going to see him heavily utilized in coverage situations. I think Jabril Cox long-term is hopeful to be this team's starting weak side linebacker. He's got to be a lot better in run support. But in coverage, he really is almost like a safety out there. And that's what I want. I want those types of linebackers in the modern-day NFL. So figuring out which linebacker leads the way, your guess is as good as mine. So let's have you guys give your guesses for me down in the comment section. Which linebacker will end up leading the Cowboys in snaps in 2021? Honestly, I don't think there's a wrong answer here. So I'm making this question the pinned comment on today's video. So if you get the ad break here on YouTube, scroll on down and get your votes in. To offense now, let's talk briefly about the tight end position here. Because I'm not worried about the backup battle, which, look, Sprinkle, McHugh, and Eubanks and maybe Lynn too, will battle for that last spot or 2 at tight end. What I'm more intrigued by is a nice problem for the Cowboys to have. Who starts at tight end? Blake Jarwin, the guy we were hyped about last year before he unfortunately got hurt and got paid before that, or Dalton Schultz, who started 2020 poorly and then really thrived down the stretch. There are some, strengths and weaknesses that align pretty decently between both of these guys. Dalton Schultz, I think, is a better blocker right now, maybe a little bit better in the short area of the fields as that safety valve type of player. Blake Jarwin, meanwhile, I think offers you a little bit more as a vertical threat, as a seam stretch position. I think that's backed up by the production. Yes, more catches and yards for Dalton Schultz, but a higher average by about 2 yards, which is significant. Of course, who the quarterback was matters for Jarwin versus Schultz there. Dak versus others for Schultz for the most part. And more touchdowns, a much longer career high in terms of long catch. So differing players there. Jarwin's coming off the injury. This is the most intriguing offensive battle for me entering training camp. So pick one. Who do you think ends up being tight end 1? And I'm allowing you guys once again to type in BJ. It's not blocked by YouTube in this case, in the comment section, or type in DS for Dalton Schultz. Get your votes in, BJ or DS. As I mentioned, today's show is made possible by Magic Spoon. This cereal tastes almost too good to be true. It tastes like the sugary, delicious stuff that we grew up with. But unlike that stuff, this is actually good for you. It is super high in protein, 13 grams per serving, and up to 14 if you have the peanut butter one, like me. It's also very low in carbs, only 4 grams of net carbs per serving, and even though there's no sugar, it is sweet and delicious. Tastes just like the cereal that we had growing up as kids, but isn't going to give you all the cavities. So head over to magicspoon.com/Cowboys to get $5 off your order. Get a box or maybe 4 from magicspoon.com/Cowboys. Let's go to the cornerback spot now, which there's a lot going on here. There's the fight for the last roster spot between like Robinson and Goodwin and Kennedy and maybe Deontay Burton too. But I'm more intrigued by who ends up being cornerback number 2. We all know Trevon Diggs, he's CB1. Jordan Lewis, I think he's locked and loaded for the nickel spot. That leaves, I'll say, 4 guys potentially fighting for that CB2 role. As you can tell on the depth chart, I've got Anthony Brown in that role for now. Now, he's bounced around outside nickel corner, battled through a lot of rib injuries last year, was never quite right. Frankly, he wasn't that good last year. He's been better in the past, and I think in the end is really more of a cornerback 3 or a cornerback 4 if we're being honest. What the Cowboys want to have happen is for Kelvin Joseph to emerge, whether it's week 1, week 4, week 9, week 15, whatever. They want Kelvin Joseph, much like Trevon Diggs as the year went on last season, to emerge as the solution at cornerback 2. They want him to take on that role and run with it. Unfortunately for Joseph, some COVID issues in minicamp, missed some time, wasn't great according to the media reports out there. In fact, 3rd round pick, the rookie out of Oregon State, Nahshon Wright, was actually more impressive in minicamp. Now, it is still very early, but there are limited snaps to go around in training camp. The youngsters need to get off on a quick start there, whether it's Wright or Joseph. Otherwise, Anthony Brown probably holds on to that role. Or maybe kind of a forgotten man in this cornerback battle ends up emerging. That is Reggie Robinson II, who last year couldn't get on the field for whatever reason that I will never fully understand. He was stuck at safety and didn't play because Darian Thompson, don't get me started. But Robinson's now apparently back at corner and maybe shouldn't be forgotten about too much in that from that perspective. So I am very curious to see if Robinson ends up emerging or if he kind of gets lost in the shuffle with a defensive coaching staff change and maybe ends up not even making the roster. That's going to be intriguing this offseason. So what do you guys think, or at least preseason I should say. So what do you guys think is the top camp battle for the Cowboys? Is it corner, tight end, linebacker? Maybe it's one we're about to get to here in just a second. Who knows? We'll find out that one in the very near future. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. The top camp battle for the Cowboys. Now, if you guys want more training camp videos, some previews, some more in-depth discussion on various roster battles and position battles, hit that big red button and subscribe. The link right there at the bottom of your screen if you need it, but you're watching on YouTube. So all you guys got to do is simply hit that big red button and make sure you get every single video we do for you guys here, which come out every single day on the Cowboys Report. To the one that actually kind of intrigues me the most, defensive tackle, because I believe in terms of the rotation, whether it's 1 through 4 or 1 through 5 or 1 through 6, however many guys end up making the roster, I think every single spot is up for grabs. Now, I do think there are some particular roles these guys could end up filling, but that's not set in stone yet. So let's go with the guy who is guaranteed to make the roster based on his contract. Perhaps the best run stopper on this defense from an interior perspective. That is Brent Urban, who signed from the Chicago Bears this offseason. Now, got great size, has played all up and down the defensive line. This could kind of be your Tyrone Crawford replacement. A bit high to play that more one technique spot, but a bit tall, built high at 6'7". I think he can handle that role if needed. I think Urban's main job is going to be to stop the run, and the Cowboys will need that after last year's debacle. Neville Gallimore is next up here. He showed a lot of flashes down the stretch. Felt like every game for the last month or a month and a half, he was making at least one splash play. And that's a big deal for the Cowboys. I think 3 technique will probably be his main role, but on passing downs, he could kick over to the 1 technique spot and line up closer to the center and still pressure the pocket, because I think he can be a 3-down player for you on the defensive line. Trysten Hill, meanwhile, is a bit of a wild card. We haven't seen much of him, but he was a second-round pick. And very rarely, Taco Charlton, do the Cowboys bail on early-round picks quickly. But Hill's coming off a torn ACL. Not only is he fighting for a potential starting role, I think Trysten Hill is fighting for a roster spot in camp and in the preseason. Now, Hill's a 3 technique, right? So is Osa Odighizuwa. Now, maybe he gets some base 5-tech defensive end reps, but he's going to be a 3-tech, I think, for the most part. Played out of position some at UCLA, a lot of upside, and he was drafted by the quote-unquote new regime led by Dan Quinn. So that gives him a leg up, potentially, over guys like Trysten Hill and or Neville Gallimore in that 3-technique role. The only true nose guard on this roster is Quinton Bahana, who I'm excited about. May fatties only have the ultimate redemption story via Bahana, the 6th-round pick out of Kentucky. But he was a 6th-round pick. He plays very tall at points. He's raw. He's not an overnight instant elite nose guard. His size gives him a very obvious role on this team if he can make the roster. Not a 3rd-down guy, more of a 1st-down only. Now, Carlos Watkins, also signed this offseason, is not guaranteed anything in terms of making the roster. His contract is not indicative of that the same way that Urban's is. But he's a decent run stopper. And if Bahana in particular doesn't impress at camp, I think that boosts the chances of Watkins making his team. But I don't think he starts, more of a depth piece if he does end up making the final 53-man roster. So what do you guys think? Who is the best defensive tackle on the Cowboys? Unless you're saying like Justin Hamilton, I don't really think there are any wrong answers. So get your votes in for me right now in the comments section. To the offensive line for one last battle. Maybe in a future video we'll do the swing tackle spot and backup offensive tackles, but I'm going starter here. And I'm looking at left guard, because that's the only spot not guaranteed necessarily, although I'm not sure just how big of a battle we'll end up having. I was excited to see a battle, because competition is good, last year between Connor Williams and Connor McGovern, but the preseason camp stuff wasn't really a thing. There could be a battle this year, and there's nothing wrong with that. Competition is good. But McGovern, I think, will also kind of become the new Joe Looney, backup center, backup guard type of player, at least this year. So pick a left guard. Who do you guys want? Type W for Connor Williams, or you can type in M for Connor McGovern. Choose your Connor here, if you will, for me right now in the comments section. Now, of the two, I have always been on Team Connor Williams. He is not nearly as bad as many of you out there seem to think. Here's the production from 2020. Now, admittedly, more snaps for Connor Williams, so keep that in mind. It's a lesser sample size for McGovern. One more sack allowed for Sewell, but again, way more sacks. Pressures still favor Williams on a percentage basis there. Penalties favor McGovern even with percentages, but Sewell was a better run blocker. Yes, he will lose ugly at various points. That does not mean he's a bad player. He's an average to above average starting offensive guard. I think McGovern could become that, but right now Williams is the better option.